So I was raised in a Catholic home with God-fearing parents, but I had never depended on Jesus. I always knew that he was there and that he died on the cross to save our sins, but that was about all I had carried with me. It wasn't until I met my husband in college that I got to experience a totally different church life. I went to church with him and his parents, and they worshiped with modern music, and they had a message that I could relate to, and they had fellowship, and the people were just so genuine, and I had never ever experienced anything like that before in my life. And it was for the first time I actually felt like the Lord was present in my life. And that was probably the beginning of my want and hunger of Jesus. I wanted more. But it wasn't until I was pregnant with our son Levi that I truly yearned for Jesus's love, that I really wanted that. When I was 24 weeks pregnant, I ended up in the hospital, and we had no idea what was going to happen, whether he would live or he would die, but this was God telling us that we needed to slow down. After we got married, we were neither here or there long enough to get connected to a church to really strengthen our faith. So we just knew that this was a sign for God that we needed to get connected, we needed to slow down, and we needed to really pull on him, because he was ultimately the only one that's going to get us through this. While I was in the hospital, I did something I never did before in my life. I started reading the Bible, and it scared me and it intimidated me, and I think that's why I never did it before. And I started journaling my whole experience, and I was praying and reading, and the nurses were even complimenting my attitude. "Oh, you're handling this very well." I said, "Hey, I put this all on Jesus Christ because there's no way I'd get through this without the hope of him being here with me." At 29 weeks, it was a weekday, so Colin was at work, and I had our last and final episode, and they decided that we needed to do an emergency C-section, so I called Colin. And I said, "We're having this baby today." And I was all at the hospital all by myself, and all I could do was begin to pray. The nurses were prepping me to go in for surgery. I just closed my eyes, and they were going, "It's gonna be okay." And I just kept my eyes closed so I couldn't remember anything more, and I just prayed, because I knew that no matter what was gonna happen, Jesus was gonna take care of me and this baby, whether it was good or bad, and I was okay with that. I've never had a peace like that ever before in my life, and it just felt amazing. And for a baby being born at 29 weeks, he was 4 pounds 5 ounces, and that's about 2 pounds heavier than most babies at his age. And when I finally got to go in and see him, the nurses were coming in and saying how strong he was and how he was thriving, but looking at a baby in a glass box with all these tubes and wires hooked to him, these monitors beeping, it's intimidating and it's scary. We visited him in the NICU for 6 weeks, and we just would sit with him and we'd hold him, and I would read him Bible stories. We'd pray with him every night, and I journaled every day, and I wrote prayers every day that someday that my kids will get to see, and I'll be able to share them with them. But it was an experience none like any other, and I just truly know that there was no way we would have gone through that without Jesus. And I know that our relationship, our marriage was stronger. Even with the lack of sleep, our faith was growing daily, and we just are so thankful for everything that Jesus had done for us. Through all of this, I've not only seen a big change internally in myself, but also in my husband, and I know that God had given him to me to lead me through this walk, because his faith is stronger than any faith I've seen before. From what I grew up with, he proclaims it, he walks it, he talks it, and it's inspiring, and he pushes me to want more, and he gives me someone to lean on, and I truly know that God put him in my life to put me back on track, and I am so thankful every day for him. I read a quote this week, and I really loved it because of what we've been through, but it said, "If he brings you to it, he will get you through it." And Jesus just wants us to walk with him, and he just wants us to want us, and I do. I just want him. Once you have that change, it's something that you'll never lose. The dependence on Jesus he's my best friend. Talk about him, talk with him every day, even in my thoughts. It's always on my mind. I'm always like, oh, I should read a little more, or hey, I need to share this with him, but yeah, that's it. It feels good. It's almost hard to comprehend how much he loves me for how imperfect I am, how he would die for one person to save me out of all people. He's died for all of us, but he would leave his whole flock just to save one person or find one lost sheep, and he found me. So I just can't. Some days I'm just like, how could he love me for the things that I've done, and his grace and his love and his joy, it is just amazing. I believe that baptism is me declaring my faith to Jesus publicly. I believe that I've had an inward change, and now I want to share my experience externally. I want to let everyone know that I believe that Jesus died on the cross for me, that he was buried and rose from the dead and was ascended into heaven just to save my sins. And I believe that baptism is a representation of that we are dying to our old selves as Jesus died on the cross, and that when we are immersed into water, we are buried as Jesus was in the grave, and then when we rise again, we are coming into a new life, and we are no longer slaves to sin like Jesus was when he rose from the dead. And I truly believe that, and I have a verse here from Romans 6:5, for if we have been united with him in a death like his, we shall certainly be united with him in a resurrection like his. And that is something, a promise that is so welcoming and warming, and to know that, we can experience that just like Jesus did. I want to be baptized because I want to let everyone know that I'm not ashamed of my faith, and that I love Jesus Christ, and I believe in all that he's done, and that his word is true. And I want everyone to know that I believe. My favorite Bible verse comes from Luke 12, verse 8. And I tell you, everyone who acknowledges me before men, the Son of Man also will acknowledge before the angels of God. But the one who denies me before men will be denied before the angels of God. And I feel like that verse was major in being baptized. It really relates, because if I didn't acknowledge Jesus, then why would he want to acknowledge me? So I'm proclaiming that I believe.
Stacey, are you trusting that Jesus is your Lord and Savior? You commit to following him as a disciple of his as long as you live. It's based on that profession of faith that I baptize you in the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Buried in the likeness of his death, raised to walk in new life.